lines. A post-Brexit future at last, the UK-EU Treaty for Gibraltar expected to be signed in the next hour. Provisional application will begin from midnight. GBC will bring you extended coverage. The UK-Gibraltar Concordat has already been signed ahead of the treaty. As Gibraltar prepares for a new era, how do you feel about the changes coming? Good afternoon and welcome to a special GBC News Bulletin. It is finally Treaty Day. Over 10 years from the Brexit vote, the future EU relationship treaty for Gibraltar is now set to be signed within the next hour. Provisional implementation will begin from midnight tonight, a historic moment for the ROC and a change which will have a lasting impact on the lives of everyone in the area. Today has already seen the signing of the UK-Gibraltar Concordat, ensuring Gibraltar has a voice in any future termination of the treaty. GBC will bring you coverage from the frontier with our reporter Claire Hernandez, and of course our news editor Christine Vasquez is in Brussels ahead of that all-important signing. We'll also be joined in the studio by former Chief Minister and Speaker of Parliament Adolfo Canepa. And we'll be hearing from you. WhatsApp 200 66 200 with your thoughts on this historic day. The treaty is expected to be signed at 1:30. The UK's Europe Minister Stephen Doughty and European Commissioner Maroš Šefčovič are expected to sign, with Chief Minister Fabián Picardo and Spain's Foreign Minister José Manuel Álvarez also attending. What has already been signed a short time ago, the Concordat between the UK and Gibraltar. The document follows extensive discussion over recent months. While recognising the UK's constitutional responsibilities, it supports the double lock principle and the concept of nothing about Gibraltar without Gibraltar. Our news editor, Christine Vasquez, is in Brussels.
Well, one down, one to go. The Concordat between the UK and Gibraltar has been signed in Brussels this morning. It was signed by the Minister for Europe, Stephen Doughty, and the Chief Minister, Fabián Picardo. We are now waiting outside the residence of the British ambassador here in Brussels, and they're going to make their way to the second signing, the most important one of the day, and that's, of course, the treaty signing. That's going to take place at the European Commission at the Bellamont building.
Live on GBC Television and Radio Gibraltar. Thanks for joining us. The signing took place at Ducal, the British ambassador to the European Union's home in Brussels, ahead of the formal treaty signing ceremony at the Bellamont building at the European Commission. The Concordat is a binding bilateral agreement between the two British governments. It governs how the UK and Gibraltar will give effect to their respective obligations under the UK-EU Treaty in respect of Gibraltar. It was deemed necessary should circumstances around the treaty change. Termination suspension provisions cover both a situation where Gibraltar would ask the UK to terminate the agreement, as well as one where it's the UK government who would want to terminate it. In effect, the UK gives a commitment that other than in all but truly exceptional circumstances, the agreement cannot be terminated unless it's supported by a motion carried by a majority of at least 3/4 of the total number of members of the Gibraltar Parliament, or a simple majority of the votes cast by the electorate in a referendum. It was signed in Brussels by the Chief Minister, Fabián Picardo, on behalf of Gibraltar, with the Minister for Europe, Stephen Doughty, signing on behalf of the United Kingdom. I'm joined here in the studio by senior broadcast journalist Rosa Sengo. Ros, things are finally in motion. It feels like it's a day that would never come. How significant is today?
It really does feel surreal, because we've been talking about this for 5 years. Remember, it was 5 years ago that Gibraltar signed the New Year's Eve Framework Agreement, and it's taken so long to actually get to this point. I mean, I've been asked so many times, particularly by overseas journalists, why has it been so complicated? Why has it been so difficult? But I think Gibraltar's position has always been unique, I think, because of the history with Spain and the tensions with the frontier. It has been a hugely complex treaty to negotiate. We've heard the Chief Minister say that, and Michael Llamas, the Attorney General, say that over and over and over again. This Concordat that's been signed today, the expectation was that it would have been signed long ago. In fact, when the treaty was published last year, it's taken a long time to arrive here. In fact, just an hour before the actual treaty has signed, but it's so crucial. Chief Minister said he would not sign, well, he's not signing the treaty, the UK and the EU is, but that would not be signed without the Concordat, because of course that gives Gibraltar the peace of mind in knowing that it can terminate the treaty, not only if it doesn't feel that it's working for it, but also if the UK has a future government that decides to terminate against Gibraltar's wishes. Gibraltar has those levers in both those situations and maintains that degree of control.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the Concordat, everything happening behind the scenes within moments of the actual signing at 1:30, and the last few days have been particularly fast-moving. So talk us through what's been happening behind the scenes when it comes to the news gathering and just how much has been changing over the last few days.
Well, I mean, even this bulletin has been changing in the last minute. Everything is changing. There were expectations that the Spanish Premier was going to come to the frontier on Monday, and that, of course, changed as well because of the fire, the fatal fire in northern Spain. And, you know, we weren't certain whether the foreign minister was coming. Is he coming? Is he not coming? People who watch the news probably think all this is sort of nicely organised in calendars way beforehand, but in fact it's so fluid and everything is changing at the last minute. We do have our ear to the ground, and we have Christine Vasquez, who's actually in Brussels. She travelled with the Chief Minister this morning and is keeping an eye on everything for us. But I mean, it's very difficult because you're just reacting all the time to news, and conflicting news as well. You're getting different pieces of information from all different sides, from the Spanish government, Spanish press, UK press, the Foreign Office, and it's really just trying to disseminate all of that and put out what is actually happening to the public when we are certain.
Well, it's all happening. As you mentioned, news editor Christine Vasquez has just spoken to the Chief Minister Fabian Picardo in Brussels ahead of the treaty signing and after the signing of the UK-Gibraltar Concordat.
So we're very pleased about the Concordat that's been signed. It regulates the relationship between the United Kingdom and Gibraltar in relation to the operation of the treaty. Gibraltar has to be the party that determines any aspect of the operation of the treaty that touches and concerns all of the competence that Gibraltar has under the Constitution, and that is what this Concordat does.
And the guarantees from the UK?
The guarantees are clear, the guarantees are political. Of course, those guarantees are hugely important, but they are political guarantees. The Constitution remains the guiding legal basis of the relationship between Gibraltar and the UK, and that has not changed at all. That's fundamental, that's key.
Chief Minister, what happens with the relationship with the UK now after this Concordat?
So the relationship is further strengthened by the Concordat because it demonstrates the trust that the United Kingdom has in Gibraltar, for Gibraltar to be able to deliver on all of the obligations that the United Kingdom has acquired on the international plane, but Gibraltar will be discharging in the context of the operation of the treaty.
This is only part one. You're off to another signing.
This is the prelude, the prequel. We're really moving now to the bit that really matters about today. The Concordat's not necessary unless you've got a treaty. We're going now to get that treaty that enables us to cheat Brexit.
GBC News editor Christine Vasquez speaking to the Chief Minister Fabian Picardo in Brussels. Now, for decades, Gibraltar's frontier has defined daily life for residents, workers and visitors. From tomorrow, with the UK-EU treaty entering provisional application, it will begin operating under an entirely new system. Every day, around 15,000 cross-border workers and thousands more residents and visitors pass through the frontier, making it one of the busiest land crossings in Europe. Today is a last opportunity to see it functioning as we've known it for so many years. Our reporter Claire Nandes is there this afternoon speaking to commuters and capturing the atmosphere on this historic day. Claire, what's it been like at the frontier?
You definitely get the feeling that it is a historic day, Kelly, although the day-to-day hasn't changed in the sense that there are lots of tourists coming across, there are lots of people, from the local area crossing as well. We've seen mainly tourists while we've been down here. The landscape has changed, the buildings have changed as we know them. We have porter cabins in place for customs just by the airport. We've got porter cabins for the Taxi Association Visit Gibraltar. We've got the Customs and Borders and Coast Guards also under their little gazebo to to help them with this incredible hot weather that we've got down here. So from that point of view, yes, these are the changes we can see. There are planters in place behind me. I don't know if we'll be able to see them. I might be in the way of that. It's all been kind of spruced up as we get ready for that very important moment tonight at midnight when the last part of the frontier comes down. Now, we have heard reports today. We've been speaking to Borders and Coast Guards and to Customs here. They've said the traffic flow has remained the same as far as they're concerned on this side of the frontier. We were hearing reports of a lot of traffic on the Spanish side, and we wondered whether perhaps it was more people coming in, more people trying to get their last day, perhaps to stamp their passports. What we have established to a certain extent is that it is the commercial traffic that's blocking traffic on the Spanish side of the frontier in La Línea, and that is due to the fair. So nothing necessarily treaty related there. Now, we're aware that there have been Spanish broadcasters just on the other side over the last few days doing various reports. Obviously, it's as big a story for the Campo de Gibraltar and for Spain as it is for us here in Gibraltar. Mayor of La Línea, Juan Franco, and the Mayor of San Roque, Juan Carlos Ruiz Boix, have both highlighted in recent days how important this moment is for the Campo de Gibraltar, for the cross-border workers, and how it will make their lives easier. That's definitely been their focus for the last few days and months of reporting. And we're just really waiting for that moment. We know what's going to happen, but we don't really know. There's a lot of things up in the air. Everyone's wondering about that moment at midnight, or 1 second past midnight, as some of our local politicians have said. Who's going to be here at the frontier? Are people going to be wanting to be the first person to cross the frontier like they did so many years ago when the frontier first opened?
Thank you very much, Ken, and this reporting for us from the frontier. Rosa Stengo joins me in the studio, senior broadcast journalist. Ros, you've been covering this story from the very beginning. Tell us a little bit about the practical changes we can expect to see.
Well, what we can see from midnight tonight is the fact that you can cross the frontier without having to show any documentation whatsoever. So that is a hugely significant moment for people living on both sides of the frontier. All residents will, no longer need to get their passports stamps at the airport. Tomorrow morning, the first flight arrives, and non-EU visitors to Gibraltar will be finding themselves going through the automated e-gates, and there are two-line checks. So you've got the checks with the Gibraltar immigration, you've also got the checks with the Schengen authorities. People will be able to see Spanish officials there, but of course they're acting within their Schengen roles. They're not actually acting within their Spanish sovereign role. So that's an important point to mention. It'll be a very different day for businesses tomorrow, because as from tomorrow, the transaction tax comes into place, all the different forms come into place. I mean, let's remember, Gibraltar never wanted to leave the EU, not because it was in love with it, but because for practical reasons, it was so much easier for us to be part of the EU. But here we are. And I think it's generally been agreed that this is the best deal that we could have hoped to negotiate, that retains Gibraltar's sovereignty. Yes, there are joint patrols, but that is within the Schengen acquis. I can never say that word, acquis. And that applies to all Schengen borders. So things will look different. There will be joint patrols. We'll be able to cross the frontier without checks, and that's everybody. That's not just red ID card holders, that's blue ID card holders as well. So things will be very different as from midnight tonight, and I think it will take some time for us to get used to it. And I think as much as everything is on paper, and 5 years of negotiating every single minutiae, I think the proof is in the pudding, and we will see as from tomorrow, as from midnight, what life is going to be like for Gibraltar going forward.
Hugely significant 24 hours for Gibraltar, and GBC will be with you every step of the way on Radio Gibraltar and GBC Television. And as Gibraltar stands on the brink of a new chapter, we've been asking for your thoughts, your hopes, and any concerns you may have about what lies ahead under the new treaty arrangements. We've also been inviting you to share your memories of the years when the frontier was closed. Were you here when it happened? How did it affect you and your family? We'd love to hear your stories, whether they reflect the challenges of those years or the resilience that helped people through them. You can get in touch by WhatsApping or calling us on 200 66 200, and a member of our team will take your call. And we've had a lot of feedback so far this morning since the breakfast show was live on GBC television and radio this morning.
And Kelly, I must say, you know, we do hear a lot of optimism from politicians, and you have to hear that as well. You know, we've been put in this situation, but there are many people who are concerned still, and I think that's reflected in the vast majority of messages we've received.
Yeah, for example, Andrew saying Gibraltar on Wednesday will be a province of Spain. He's concerned they will do what they want, referring to Spain. John says so much for sovereignty.
Yeah, Mario says this is a huge mistake, advancement for Spain and a massive retrograde step for Gibraltar. We shall regret this agreement. John says this is bad for Gibraltar. We should have nothing to do with Spain. We don't need them. They need us, and we don't need them at all. Crime in Gibraltar will soar. Mr. Picardo is a traitor.
Wow, well, security has been an issue that's been raised on repeat, really, in recent weeks. Linda's saying she just hopes that crime rates don't increase, and she hopes they don't enter waving their flags and saying Gibraltar belongs to Spain. Natalie simply saying it's such a mess. Hubert trying to be hopeful. He's hopeful it will all work out for the best.
Yeah, I'm just going through some of these comments, and it is very difficult to find a positive. Yeah. But I think that there's a few things that we must bear in mind. First of all, that we have a very historic relationship with Spain that has not been positive. And I think many people still feel that. There's that element of distrust there, perhaps not amongst the younger generation. The younger generation don't carry the same baggage as the older generation does. And I think the security issue is a very real issue that has been addressed in part with all the CCTV cameras going up. There's facial recognition, there's ANPR, automatic number plate recognition at the frontier. We've got a substation for the police at the frontier. You've got the 4x4s there, the customs and borders. You know, they're all there to keep an eye on who comes into Gibraltar. But, you know, you have to ask the question, well, what does that mean, who comes into Gibraltar? I mean, the test will be tonight, because there's a match between Spain and France, a semi-final of the World Cup. So we don't really know what to expect, and I think it's the element of the unknown, but we'll speak to Adolfo Canepa shortly as well. But, you know, when the frontier reopened, you still had, there are many people who had the same sort of fears that we're hearing now. Yeah. Had those fears when the frontier reopened. So it'll be good to put it into perspective, but like I say, it's a lot of people are very concerned about it, despite the positive notes coming out of the political sphere.
And we'd love to hear from you still. 200 66 200 is a number to call or WhatsApp. Now, news editor Christine Vasquez is in Brussels. The treaty is expected to be signed at 1:30, Ros, and the UK's Europe Minister, of course, Stephen Doughty, and European Commissioner Maroš Šefčovič, they're expected to sign, with Chief Minister Fabian Picardo and Spain's Foreign Minister José Manuel Álvarez also attending. Now, we'll be bringing you coverage throughout the hour. Ros, tell us a little bit about some key moments over the last 10 years. I know it's hard to pinpoint because so much has happened.
I don't actually have the timeline in front of me. So from memory, in June 2016, we had Brexit, and that was hugely shocking. It was an earthquake for Gibraltar. What on earth do we do? We've got a hard border. We've got, you know, nearly half our workforce comes from across the frontier. This is going to affect us significantly. So there was that feeling of helplessness. And then you had the UK negotiating the trade and cooperation agreement, and Gibraltar was not included. The positive spin was, well, Gibraltar's agreement has to be a bespoke one, and that is actually quite true. So the UK had their agreement, and then we finally got our New Year's Eve framework. That took quite a few years to sort of get to, I think a couple of years to get to, and then that was published. It took a while for the discussions to get going. Of course, we had COVID, and I remember as long as 3 years ago interviewing the then governor, Sir David Still, saying, well, when is it happening? When is this treaty happening? And it's just around the corner, or I think we could, you know, hopefully have it before the summer. And we've been on tenterhooks, and I think the benefit of all this waiting has been that the shock of what might have been in the treaty, had we read it 3 years ago, such as joint patrols, the Schengen shack at the airport. All these elements might have come as a bit of a shock 3 years ago, but you know, I think we've reached a point where, okay, let's just get on with it. Let's get it across the line.
It's built our resilience.
It's built our resilience, it really has. And I think people have really come to understand how complex and difficult it has been because, you know, Gibraltar is not in the EU. We're not part of Schengen. We give access to Schengen. We're not in the customs union. We have a bespoke one. It's very easy to talk about the broad principles, but it's when you get down to the details, and that is where the problems have been. Look at, for example, the fact that we don't have the ferry coming over from Morocco anymore, because that would have added such a complicated scenario of having Schengen officials, i.e. Spanish officials, on Gibraltar land. So there were huge hurdles. We can't underestimate it. And I think most people broadly, despite the fears, accept that what we've got is probably the best of what we might have expected. The GSD says otherwise. It says we could have negotiated freedom of movement rather than fluidity, but the Chief Minister was very clear that that would have opened up another can of worms. Gibraltar's protected itself with the new residency rules because there is that real danger that there'll be an influx of people wanting to come over here, so that's protected. And really, I think everything's been done. We just have to wait and see what happens next.
Thank you, Ros. Well, Christine Vasquez also spoke to the director of the Gibraltar mission to the European Union, Daniel D'Amato.
So it has taken a lot of work. It's been a lot of years of effort, a lot of years of sacrifice. It's been 10 years in the making as we've gone through the different phases. I've been involved. I moved to Brussels in 2015, so I've seen it all. I was there in Brussels even before the referendum, and I've been involved in every phase of the negotiations. I've been probably at every single negotiation round, the countless technical sessions, so it's been a fantastic experience for me and a privilege, of course.
We would have thought that our contact with the EU would have diminished with the treaty, but it could actually increase.
It will increase. It will increase. I mean, we're going to have relationships with two monsters of the European Union, which are Schengen and the customs union. Those are two areas of EU policy which, whilst we were part of the EU, never affected us. And now we're going to be affected by those two areas. We're going to have relationships with the EU in relation to Schengen and the customs union, and that will change the panorama completely. So I think it's true to say that our relationship with Europe will deepen as a result of the treaty, as compared to what our position was whilst we were part of the EU.
Ironically, our relationship with the UK will also probably deepen as a result of the treaty.
Yes, we've worked incredibly well with the UK FCDO over the years and the UK mission to the EU. We've had a fantastic team in Whitehall that's guided us through the negotiations. I think now it's up to us here locally to implement the treaty, even though, of course, it's the UK that's the party to the treaty, but it'll be up to us to implement the treaty here and ensure that we adhere to what we need to comply with. And for sure, I mean, the UK-Gibraltar relationship, I think, is strengthened as a result of these negotiations, and we hope and we will continue to work with them very closely as we move on.
So, appointed head of mission, what do you think this will now entail? And do you have the staff in Brussels?
So the change in name is symbolic. I think we want to mark a new beginning for the Brussels office. I mean, the UK went through its own changes when the UK representation to the EU became the UK mission to the EU upon the Trade and Cooperation Agreement coming into force. So we're replicating that. So I'm convinced that we have the means available to us in Brussels in order to deliver on what we need to deliver on. I think the Deputy Chief Minister spoke about this recently in Parliament. We've got a plan in place for the office, a manual on how the office should be operated moving forwards. And I'm very excited about the new chapter for the office.
Christine Vasquez speaking to Director of the Gibraltar Mission to the EU, Daniel D'Amato, in Brussels. You're watching a GBC News Special Bulletin. Stay with us for more live coverage on GBC Television and Radio Gibraltar, including the treaty signing. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Our world runs on momentum. From the first light over the rock to the plans we make for the days ahead, each moment carries us forward. For 150 years, Gibraltar Insurance has moved with that energy. Rooted in Gibraltar, reaching the wider world, built on the past, and looking to the future, wherever momentum takes you next. Gibraltar Insurance will be by your side, every step of the way.
Welcome to the Corner Shop, where expectations in painting and decorating go above and beyond, providing the community colour since 1947. From DIY enthusiasts to professional decorators, we offer trusted brands like Dulux, Armstead, Hammerite and more. Explore our expert colour mixing centre, plus DIY and decorating supplies. The Corner Shop, free parking and free delivery.
If you have employees, then you have HR and payroll. And the computer software you use makes all the difference. EasyPay has been specifically designed to meet the needs of businesses in Gibraltar, whatever the size. For a free demonstration, call 200 741 21 and find out more online at easypay.gi.
Welcome back to our special GBC News Bulletin, live on GBC Television and Radio Gibraltar, where we're now only minutes away from the signing of the UK-EU Treaty for Gibraltar. Our news editor, Christine Vasquez, is in Brussels.
That's right. Here I am in Brussels, and we've just come from the British Ambassador's residence, where the Concordat between the UK and Gibraltar has been signed. It's a very short trip, but a lot is happening while we're here. So it's all been a bit rush from one place to the other. I'm a bit late to the party. I think I should have come in a bit earlier on. But here we are outside the Parliament in the European Commission, and inside is the signing of the treaty. So it's going to be signed by the European Commissioner, that's Maros Šefčovič, and by Stephen Doughty, the Minister for Europe for the UK. Inside is the Spanish Foreign Minister, José Manuel Álvarez, and the Chief Minister, Fabian Picardo. So we're just waiting for that. We understand that there will be a live feed on the signature. That Concordat, done and dusted. It wasn't that important before the signature, and I think the consensus was that as long as it was ready for before ratification, it would have been fine. But the Chief Minister talking to me earlier, telling me he's very happy with the commitments from the UK government. That Concordat, of course, important should either Gibraltar or the UK change its mind about the treaty. So Gibraltar now has a right to ask the UK that if we're not happy for whatever reason, that we can opt out of that treaty if it's not working for us. And likewise, the UK can do the same, but everything has to be agreed with Gibraltar. So basically, it's nothing about Gibraltar without Gibraltar being present, and that commitment is included in the Concordat. We're not very sure whether the Concordat will actually be made public a bit later today, but we do know that it will be laid in Parliament later on this week, possibly Thursday.
Christine,
So,
you've been with the
I'm
Gibraltar
going to leave
delegation.
you from Brussels at the moment.
Christine, you've been with the Gibraltar delegation since first thing in the morning, of course, travelling on that private jet to Brussels. What is the atmosphere like among the team?
The atmosphere is very, very buoyant. I think it's a major step, a major landmark in 5 years of negotiations. We've had all these roller coaster moments, and as I told you yesterday on Gibraltar Today, even this weekend has been a roller coaster. I know that there's been a lot of work being carried out behind the scenes to the very last minute, and this treaty has been a lastminute.com since it started. Since that New Year's Eve agreement, which was taken to the wire. We've been here in Brussels, you know, it's like my second home now. We've been here often, coming back to Gibraltar with, I'm sorry, they haven't managed to get an agreement. That 99.9% that we were, that touching, kissing distance that we've been as well. So really good atmosphere. I think the delegation is perhaps tired, but really buoyant.
Thank you very much, Christine Vasquez. And the treaty is expected to be signed any moment. Stay with us. We will continue with Rosa Stengo, who is in the studio. And with Gibraltar entering a new era, few people understand the significance of that moment better than Adolfo Canepa. He served as a government minister throughout much of the closed frontier period, spending 16 years in government under Sir Joshua Hassan before becoming chief minister himself in 1987. He's with us now to reflect on how far Gibraltar has come and what this moment means. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
A hugely significant moment. You've lived through the closure of the frontier, is reopening, EU membership, Brexit, and now this treaty. As someone who's witnessed every major chapter of Gibraltar's modern history, just how significant are these 24 hours for you?
Remarkable. As I look back over my life, most of it obviously closely involved or observant of these events in the life of Gibraltar, I am amazed, you know, never a dull moment. It's been a hard slog. It hasn't been easy. The years of the closed frontier, 21 years really with the restrictions starting in 1964, were grim for the government of Gibraltar, very difficult, and at a personal level. And then, unexpectedly, after we joined the EU, the frontier had opened in 85, and then we had Brexit. I think Brexit has been a very great mistake by English politicians. Maybe most of them won't admit it, but they should. Britain hasn't benefited from it. And for Gibraltar was a kick in the guts. I mean, we never expected that. And it has set us back 10 years. But the hard slog that Fabian and Joseph, and supported by Michael Yamas, have undergone, you know, they've delivered. I remember saying shortly before the last general election that they deserved the opportunity to conclude the treaty, and by God, they have done so. I think it's been a wonderful achievement. I think it shows the caliber of Gibraltar politicians, because there are other people like Peter Caruana and Keith Asopardi probably in the same position. I'm sure they would never have let Gibraltar down, as they didn't at the time of the new constitution. So all round, I think, very satisfactory for Gibraltar, and we should be pretty optimistic.
Mr. Canepa, can I ask you a question? You probably didn't hear us read out some of the comments that we've been receiving from our viewers. A lot of concern expressed about what this treaty means for Gibraltar, the open frontier. A lot of people see it as concessions to Spain. They're worried about security. So I'd like to ask you what you think about that, particularly in the context of when the border actually opened in 1985 as well. I mean, what would you say to people with those concerns?
People were concerned at the time. For instance, the border opened in 1985 on a 24-hour basis, but they wanted it to be as it had been in the past. People wanted it to close at 1 in the morning and then not to reopen until 6, because they would feel safe in their beds at home. I think there's nothing to fear, really. The only fear that I personally have is a change of government in Spain. I think for as long as Pedro Sanchez and Alvarez are in government, they are well disposed towards Gibraltar and our people, and I think that there is nothing to fear. What worries me is that things may change in Spain, and then we may have a very right-wing government. PP are not centre-right. They become, with Vox, very right-wing. And those people think differently. Vox are fascists. Vox don't care about people, so they're not going to care about Gibraltar.
But do you think that they would risk jeopardising the reset of the relationship between Spain and the UK by objecting to the treaty? Should they take?
Yes, I think I do. I mean, I follow politics in Spain very, very closely. I hear what a man like Abascal says about climate change. He doesn't care. You know, he does not believe in the normal principles governing politics. They are fascist. They are warped in their way of thinking, and for them, Gibraltar is anathema. They would want a Spanish Gibraltar. What benefit to the Campo de Gibraltar a Spanish Gibraltar would have? I don't know. 15,000 people would not come to work in Gibraltar if Gibraltar were Spanish, but they don't care. I find a very hard group of politicians in PP and Vox, and heaven help us if they get into government. They will not care about the EU. They will do what they think, which is what in opposition they are actually advocating.
Mr. Canepa, Ros voiced some concerns from the public. Some people would have preferred a referendum before such a significant change, and you've argued in the past that it's not practical politics. So why do you believe parliamentary approval was the right approach?
Because that is what you elect your people for. You have a general election with a clear-cut program. We all knew at the time of the last general election what was at stake, both government and opposition, not a great deal of difference with regards to Brexit. So you have a detailed memorandum, a manifesto. You have a detailed campaign, and you're telling people what you will do if you get into government, and you ask people for their trust. And you have to trust that people with the intelligence of a Fabian Picardo, of a Peter Caruana, or Sir Joshua Hassan, you have to trust that those people believe what you do believe. You know, why should anybody think that I think differently about the future of Gibraltar and about the good of my children and my grandchildren than they do? You have to have trust. Matters are complex. A government is elected to govern, not to ask people what they think about 1,000-odd pages of a treaty.
Yeah, just reminding as well, we had a general election in 2023, didn't we? So there was an opportunity there for a change of government, should people not have been happy with it. But I want to ask you, Mr. Canepa, do you feel comforted?
OK, I believe we had to cut. There is movement, and the treaty is expected to be signed any moment now. We have live footage from Brussels.
Commissioner Maros Sefcovic, member of the European Commission in charge of trade and economic security, interinstitutional relations and transparency for the European Union, and Mr. Stefan Doughty, Minister of State for Europe, North America and UK Overseas Territories of the United Kingdom. I will invite now the signatories to sign the agreement.
Yeah, that's all. The job is over. The job is
I'm not letting go.
Dai, tocca male, no? It's big. No. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thank you. That's it. It's like World Cup. Good. Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This concludes the signing ceremony. Thank you.
Well, years in the making, Ros.
When you think that the last significant treaty, I think I'm going to ask Mr. Canepa this, was 313 years ago, the Treaty of Utrecht. We've had political agreements, but this is a legal agreement. This is such a significant moment. Perhaps
there was
for 300 years.
There was another treaty in 1783 after the War of American Independence, and there they handed over Minorca, but kept Gibraltar.
Right.
That was significant, that they had an opportunity to take Gibraltar and they didn't. But of course, Britain was not going to hand over Gibraltar after the events of the Great Siege.
Yeah, but it is how do you feel looking at that? I mean, that is history in the making.
It reminds me the day that the frontier opened, February the 5th, 85. I wasn't here. I was in Geneva with Sir Joshua, Joe Pitaluga, Geoffrey Howe, and Fernando Moran. We were having a meeting, Gibraltar, Spain, and Britain, in Geneva. So I wasn't here for that very, very historical day that the frontier opened. But I'm here today for an equally historical day.
And the difference is that, as we see, Gibraltar is very much on the table, an equal partner.
In our own right.
In our own right. And something that you fought for.
Indeed.
With Sir Joshua Hassan.
We were part of the UK delegation then. Geoffrey Howe treated us very well, with great respect. And the Spanish foreign ministers as well. I remember in Spain, Sir Joshua and I were recognized as being chief minister and minister. But look, we didn't have the standing. Gibraltar has been negotiating on its own. The chief minister is a third party in the whole affair. That wasn't the case. We've come a long way.
Thank you. Pause that thought. I believe we are cutting to our news editor, Christine Vasquez, in Brussels. The treaty has just been signed.
And I agree with Mr. Canepa, we have come a very, very long way. And as I said earlier, it's a short trip, but a lot has been done. So we've managed to sign both documents, that Concordat earlier on, and the treaty now here in the European Commission. What's happening next? Well, there's lunch. They are having lunch together, the Minister for Europe, Maros Šefčovič, the European Commissioner, the Spanish Foreign Minister and the Chief Minister. I must say that earlier we thought we might get the chance to talk to the Minister for Europe, Stephen Doughty, but he did not stop for us. That was outside the British ambassador's home, Duval, here in Brussels. So we thought we might get that opportunity to have a voice from the UK government. It has not happened. We did talk to the Chief Minister. So now we're here, we're at the European Commission. We're waiting for lunch to finish. We're not very sure what's on the menu, but of course, everything that we came to Brussels for has happened. So whatever is for lunch is for lunch. And then we might actually get some doorstepping here outside the European Commission. We are hopeful we might get the Chief Minister together with the Spanish Foreign Minister. So here we are waiting, and whatever happens, we'll bring it to you.
Vasquez, lunch is on the cards. I wonder what's on the menu. While much attention has focused on the political significance of the agreement, businesses have been closely following developments throughout the years of treaty negotiations. Joining us now, Owen Smith, the chairperson of the Gibraltar Federation of Small Businesses, to discuss what today's agreement means in practice. He's speaking to Katie Docker, live from Main Street.
Well, it's a huge day for Gibraltar, and to reflect on what it means for local businesses, I'm here with a key member of the business community, the chairperson of the GFSB, Owen Smith. Owen, thank you so much for joining us. So first of all, what's your overall reaction? Is today a positive day for Gibraltar's businesses?
I mean, it's an extremely historic day for Gibraltar. And I think when we look at what is taking place today and we compare it to what the alternative might have been, it is a very positive day for Gibraltar business.
For business owners watching at home, what are the biggest practical changes they'll notice as this agreement comes into effect?
Well, obviously the biggest change is fluidity for people across the border, which is going to make a huge difference to workforces, to tourists visiting Gibraltar, and also the ability of people to come into Gibraltar and enjoy our food and beverage and retail sector. The reverse is also true, and that's where the challenge lies.
There's been quite a lot of discussion and at times confusion about what the treaty actually means. Do you think that businesses now have the clarity that they've been asking for?
I think there's a lot more information in the public domain that has been provided to businesses over the last few weeks and months. There's been lots of town halls, lots of Q&A sessions, and a real effort on part of the political and civil government to make sure businesses are armed with the information that they need. I do know that in some sectors there is still a feeling that there's information that they don't have and knowledge about how the systems are going to work that they don't yet have. So there's going to be a little bit of muddling through, I think, as well. And I think tomorrow is going to be a very interesting day down at the commercial frontier for some. I know we have some members who are very concerned about it. This is new for everybody. And I hope that we will be able to get through those challenges as smoothly as possible.
So what do you think still needs to happen before businesses can fully benefit from what's been agreed? Is it now largely about implementation?
Now we're going to be facing the practical realities of the treaty. It's been signed. It's now our treaty. The border will be gone tomorrow. That is absolutely momentous. And now I think we start to find out inevitably what's going to work, where the challenges are going to be, what the opportunities are. And it's beholden to everybody in the business and in government to make the most of the treaty, to exploit all the opportunities it brings. To do so strategically, I think, is the important part, and also to work together to overcome the challenges, which will probably be significant.
So looking ahead, where do you see the biggest opportunities for Gibraltar's economy and for small businesses under this new framework? What sectors do you think stand to gain or to lose the most?
I think the obvious winner is going to be our tourism sector, but I think also our services industry is going to benefit massively from this as well, because I think the proposition of coming to live and or work in Gibraltar is massively improved by improved fluidity. I think the challenge is obviously going to be for some sectors that might lose out to improve fluidity at the frontier. There are aspects which are going to assist local businesses as well. For the first time, if you go and shop in Spain, you're not going to get your EVA back as you cross back into the border, and that's going to be an important aspect for local businesses to consider in the positive sphere. I think it's those businesses in tourism and services that are going to benefit immediately the most.
Is there anything that you'd like the government to prioritise over the coming weeks in relation to businesses?
Well, I think that there are two. The immediate priority for us is getting clarity on the business support measures that were announced last week by the Minister for Business. I think those measures have to come quickly. The impact of the treaty will begin to bite as from tomorrow. And there are businesses that are at the sharp end of the Brexit wedge, of this treaty wedge, who are literally paying a price, which is the transaction tax. Those businesses need support, certainly in the immediate future and in the medium term as well, I think.
Finally, what would your message be to business owners who may still be uncertain about what today's agreement means for them?
I think that we, as an organisation, other business organisations, the government and many businesses have worked very hard to understand exactly what the treaty means. I don't think that, we're no longer in a position like as we were 12 months ago where there are lots of questions. The questions remain. There's a lot of information out there. And I think there's a lot of ways of accessing that information. So I think people now, and I think most of our members do understand what the theory is of how this will impact their business. And now we wait to see how much of that theory translates into practice.
Thank you, Owen. Plenty to catch up on and discuss over the coming weeks and months, I'm sure. That was Owen Smith of the GFSB talking to us about what the treaty means for businesses in Gibraltar, a big day for Gibraltar and a big day for businesses.
Thank you very much. Katie Docker reporting to us live from Main Street, speaking to GFSB Chair Owen Smith. And we'd like to keep hearing from you. How are you feeling about this historic moment? Are you optimistic about what lies ahead? Or do you still have questions or concerns about what the changes will mean in practice? We're also collecting your memories of Gibraltar's closed frontier years. If you lived through that period, what do you remember the most? How did it shape your family, your work, or your daily life? Whether you're looking back or looking ahead, we'd love for you to be part of the conversation. You can call us or send us a WhatsApp on 200 66200, and a member of our team will be happy to hear from you. Ros Michaela reminiscing, she says, so glad the treaty is almost here. She'll never forget being 20 weeks pregnant and her flight being diverted, and she didn't have a Schengen and got deported back to the UK. Pete saying he hopes the treaty works out well, but he's got a feeling in his gut that the other side will abuse it. And Heidi reminiscing, she says family used to tell her how on Sundays families would gather at the frontier gate just to try shouting across the frontier, hoping their voices would carry. She said it's hard to imagine now, but it really shows the strength of family ties and how determined people were to stay connected no matter the circumstances.
Yeah, we've got Lucy who says, brilliant, it's about time the border farce was sorted. Give people in Gibraltar the freedom to move easily, shop, live and enjoy the neighbouring area as they have for many years before Brexit. Hubert says, hopefully it works out well for all. And Brian says, negatively, the beginning of the end of Britishness. Now, this is something, this is a theme that we've been hearing quite a lot. People are worried that we will lose our
identity.
Yeah, we're going to lose our identity. Mr. Callaper, what do you think about that?
I think that people must not underestimate the resolve and the strength of us Gibraltarians. Look, in 2002, the then Labour government was prepared to negotiate co-sovereignty with Spain. We stopped that. It was the Gibraltar government, supported by people of all political views, that took on the British government. A very strong campaign was mounted, both in Gibraltar and in the UK, and we had a referendum, and the result was clear-cut. We mustn't underestimate ourselves. The treaty is not a straightforward issue like co-sovereignty, or the first referendum when you are being asked, do you wish to be under Spain or under Britain? It is a complex issue. It's taken years of hard work, but it is... People must trust that Gibraltar politicians feel like they do. I don't think Fabian Picardo and Joe Bossano or any minister or member of the opposition want to see an iota of sovereignty being undermined. I don't. You don't. So what are we? We mustn't be afraid of our own strength. We've shown in the past how we can win through, and if there is any threat in the future, I am sure that the people of Gibraltar remaining united will succeed again. Future generations are as strong as my generation or as past generations. I honestly, sincerely believe that we don't have to be negative in this respect, for as long as I say, as there is also a Spanish government that is well disposed towards Gibraltar, because a different government might be prepared to take on the EU, even though Spain has not signed a treaty with the EU, but they might be prepared to play games at the frontier. But that is another issue altogether. As far as British sovereignty is concerned, we have nothing to fear.
Thank you for your opinion, Mr. Canepa. Now we're going to hear yours. With the frontier set to become more fluid under the new Gibraltar Treaty, people in town welcome the prospect of easier movement across the border, but some also raise concerns about security and, in particular, the safety of children once routine checks are removed.
Nervous. I think everyone doesn't like change. It all makes us nervous, anticipating what's to come. I think as a mom, maybe a bit skeptical about how many people can come in and out of Gibraltar, how freely can they come in and out of Gibraltar, the safety of our children, just because we've always been used to our kids having the freedom to go to the park, we can socialise with our friends and sometimes not always be keeping an eye on our children. And yeah, there's loads of questions to come, also cost of living.
I think it makes it easier for me to go across to Spain. I've been across a few times. Before I had my card, I had to scan my passport, but now I have my card. It's been easy anyway, but now it should be even easier.
I think that obviously there's the anticipation there of how things are going to go. I'm trying to focus on the positives, definitely. As a parent, you worry about the safety and security of your children. That's one thing that's been at the forefront of our minds, but I think they're putting measures in place to cater for obviously the additional police presence and so on at the border. Obviously, as in day-to-day life, I think everybody will benefit from the fluidity, the lack of queuing.
Yes, I think everybody in Gibraltar has suffered at one point or another from the length of the border queue, especially in the summers. So the freedom of movement will, I think, be a lot more positive for everybody.
Well, I cross the border a lot, especially for trading. So now that I don't have to show my passport, I guess it's much easier now, no? So we'll see how it goes.
For the cross-frontier worker, I think it will make a huge difference. The flow that we won't have to queue and they won't have to queue again to come to work and things like that can be good. Also for us, if we want to go more often to Spain, we won't have to be checking on the app, is there a queue? Should I go now, later? But it's come also with some concern for the security. I know they have been putting a lot of cameras and things like that, which is good.
I don't think there's going to be any slowing down to the number of cars. We won't have to obviously stop and show a passport, but I think generally there's probably still going to be a bit of traffic just from the volume of cars coming and going. Hopefully it's a bit easier, and then from a security standpoint, I think it's a time for Gibraltar as a community to really stick together and look out for each other, and just kind of make sure we keep it a safe and happy place for all of us.
We are live on GBC Television and Radio Gibraltar. Now, earlier today, British Labour MP Amanda Martin, the chair of the all-party parliamentary group on Gibraltar, met UK Minister for Europe Stephen Doughty ahead of the signing. Rosa Stengel caught up with her to discuss the significance of the agreement, the UK's priorities, and what comes next for Gibraltar.
Well, I've just been in a meeting with Minister Doughty, and it's one of excitement, I guess, pensive, because it's been a long time coming, but it's a historic day.
Are you able to tell us what your meeting with Minister Doughty was about?
It was just to go over to the details, to just have a look, because obviously I'm Amanda Martin, I'm the Member of Parliament for Portsmouth North, but I am the chair of the Gibraltar All-Party Parliamentary Group. So it was to go over the treaty, to go over the timelines, to explain kind of where we're at and how we're getting to that and what that would look like in the British Parliament, but also with Gibraltar and with Spain and with our European partners.
Are you bringing a message from Westminster? Because obviously part of your job is lobbying with other ministers. So is there a message there that you're bringing?
Yeah, I think there's an absolute massive unity on this. There was a Westminster Hall debate last week, which was called by MP Martin Vickers. So he was called the debate and I spoke in it. And it was a real coming together. Obviously, there's always a bit of toing and froing with the opposition, but I think that was more of politics rather than actually disagreeing. There's a real unanimity with this treaty and a real excitement.
OK, so are you satisfied? We've not seen the text of the Concordat. I don't know whether you have or not, but are you sure are you satisfied that it ensures Gibraltar's constitutional position remains protected?
Absolutely. It's not very much different to the draft that people have already seen that's been laid. There are a couple of technical tweaks. But I mean, if I think back to your First Minister's comments when he said, what he wanted from this treaty, what the red lines is not one grain of land, not one drop of water, not one breath of air to be ceded. And I absolutely think that is what is in this.
Tell us about your role going forward in scrutinising the implementation of the treaty, because it's not just about whether everyone sticks to their roles and their rules, but also about whether it delivers what Gibraltar wants it to deliver, like shared prosperity, for example.
I mean, I think part of the role of the APPG and part of the role of the chair is, we know that for too long there's been such an uncertainty and it's affected people and businesses on both sides of the border. And I think this treaty does provide that certainty, and it also provides that opportunity. So I think as the APPG, what we're able to do is not only just kind of do the checks and balances and check how it's working in the process and the procedures as we follow through the time, but also how are we going to grow that prosperity and that opportunity?
So that is something that you are going to be monitoring. I have to ask you, though, there is some nervousness around the treaty. We're entering a new era. Is there anything in particular that you think that we should be particularly, guarding against? Any concerns that you know?
No, absolutely not. I think that the border control is exactly what it should be. And I understand the nervousness. This has been a long time coming. It's taken a lot of people to get in a room to have all of these conversations, the Gibraltarian government, the Spanish government, our European partners, the UK government. But I don't have any concerns. I'm really proud and I'm really reassured by what's within that, the protection of Gibraltarian people, exactly what they wanted, the opportunity to expand, whether that's through flights, through business. And I think there's a real opportunity. I'm not worried about anything. I think what we just need to make sure is that there's an open and transparency as it's delivered.
Amanda Martin MP, who spoke to us from Brussels ahead of the historic signing of the UK-EU Treaty on Gibraltar. A big thank you to Adolfo Canepa for joining us today. A final word from you. I was wondering, what would you say to the Adolfo Canepa who was serving in government in the 1970s? And would he have imagined Gibraltar as it is today in this position?
No, I honestly could not have thought that all this would happen. Once we joined the EU, I never thought that the UK would leave. I never thought that Brexit would happen and that therefore all these dramatic events of the last few years would have occurred. I would have thought it was a smooth process. I'd like to thank you for this opportunity of sharing this historic occasion with you. I'm going to go across to Spain on the 22nd of August. It's a historic occasion. It would have been our wedding anniversary. And I'm going with Hayley, my daughter, en route from Seville to Italy to celebrate the wedding of my granddaughter Chloe and Sam Marashi. It will be a day to go down in history as far as I'm concerned as well.
Wishing you congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
We wish them all the best.
I've enjoyed sharing this moment with you.
And we've enjoyed having you here.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And thank you, Rosa Stengo. You will be on the news later as well today, because GBC will continue bringing you comprehensive coverage across television, radio and online throughout the day, into the evening and through the early hours of the morning. On GBC television, the lottery moves to the earlier time of 7 p.m, followed by an extended GBC News at 7:30 and a night of special programming. At 9 p.m, we have Beyond the Border, exploring not only the end of a border, but the beginning of a new chapter, while at 9:30, De Guardas reflects on Gibraltar's past. A special 10 p.m. news update brings you the latest developments from Treaty Implementation Day. Then at 10:05, we'll be showing Closure, a documentary looking back at the closed frontier. Live coverage continues with a special GBC News Bulletin at 11, taking you through to midnight and into the early hours as events unfold. And the coverage doesn't stop there. Tomorrow morning, the breakfast show on Radio Gibraltar will once again be pictured on GBC television with live reports from the frontier as Gibraltar wakes up to a new era. Wherever you are, stay with GBC as we bring you every development on this historic day. Thank you so much for tuning in.
The agreement.
advice brings